April 1943. The night sky above Hamburg burns like a furnace. Flames claw at the darkness as the British Lancaster bomber, call sign Kilo 7, banks hard through the smoke. Inside the cockpit, the world is chaos, screaming metal, flickering light, and the acrid sting of burning insulation. Flight Lieutenant Howard Briggs grips the control column with both hands. His knuckles are white through the leather of his gloves. Sweat cuts thin lines through the soot on his face. Behind him, the intercom crackles. No words, just static and the fading heartbeat of their dying radios. A sharp jolt tears through the fuselage. The bomber shudders like a wounded animal. A shell fragment rips through the right wing, snapping cables and slicing the engine cowling open like a wound. Flames bloom briefly, then vanish into black smoke. One engine gone, 3 left. Briggs doesn't flinch. His voice is calm, almost detached, feathering number 4. The words are routine, mechanical, but his eyes tell a different story. There's fear there buried deep under duty. The crew scrambles in the gloom. The flight engineer, Clark, fights the fire controls with trembling fingers. Sparks rain from the overhead panel as the second engine coughs, sputters, then catches again. In the rear turret, Sergeant Miller mutters something about angels, voice thin over the static. No one answers. Outside, tracer fire arcs upward from the city below. Each line of light a promise of death. The sky smells of oil and cordite. Through the shattered nose glass, the glow of the burning city fades behind them. Ahead lies the endless black of the North Sea. Briggs exhales slowly, heading to Evans, Eero. We're going home, but home feels like a dream. Instruments are dying one by one. The compass needle spins uselessly. The altimeter flickers, its needle bouncing in lazy disbelief. Smoke seeps into every corner, coating their tongues with the taste of metal. Below them, the dark water waits, indifferent and cold. Minutes stretch into hours. The bomber limps through the night like a ghost, each vibration a reminder that something vital is breaking apart. Clark checks the gauges, fuel leaking fast. Oxygen low, hydraulic pressure gone. Briggs scans the control panel again. Half of it is dark. The smell of fried circuits fills the air. He can barely hear the engines anymore, just the heavy thump of his own heartbeat. For a moment the cockpit falls silent except for the wind tearing past the fuselage. The crew has stopped speaking. There's nothing left to say. Briggs stares at the horizon. Empty, endless. If they jump, they die in the sea. If they stay, they burn or fall apart midair. He grips the control again, steady and deliberate. We're not done yet. The bomber drifts lower. Altitude dropping. The ocean below glimmers faintly under moonlight, mocking their struggle. Briggs leans forward, squinting at the failing dials. He taps one with his glove, as if willing it back to life. Nothing. Then another jolt. A loud metallic snap echoes through the cockpit. The co-pilot, Sergeant Hayes, yells, controls not responding. Briggs pulls the yoke. Nothing. The bomber wobbles, dips to the right. The aileron cable's gone. They're losing roll control. The realization hits like ice. The bomber begins to yaw, slow at first, then faster. The horizon tilts. Clark curses under his breath. Hayes fights the secondary controls, his breath ragged. She's not holding. Ease it, ease it. Briggs barks, but his voice is calm again, sharp like a scalpel cutting through panic. He's been here before, though never this close to the edge. The bomber steadies slightly, wings trembling like tired lungs. Briggs adjusts what's left of the trim. He's running out of options. And out of sky, can we still climb? Hayes asks. Briggs shakes his head. No, we ride it. There's a long silence after that. Even the engines seem to hesitate. Outside, dawn begins to stain the horizon pale grey. It's 4:37 a.m. The night raid is over, but the war inside this cockpit has just begun. Briggs feels the cold creeping in through his flight suit. His gloves are damp with fuel. He looks down at the floor. Among the scattered tools and ration tins, a single spoon rolls across the deck, clinking softly against the metal. He watches it spin to a stop, a small, ordinary thing, but it makes him think. Something shifts in the back of his mind, a half-formed idea, the kind that arrives quietly like a whisper through the storm. He doesn't know it yet, but that sound, the faint ring of metal on metal, will become the first note of his impossible solution. The engines groan again, the bomber shaking like an old ship in a storm. Briggs straightens his back, eyes on the dim glow of the horizon. Keep her steady, he mutters, whatever it takes, and with that the story of the man who refused to fall begins, not in triumph but in silence, smoke, and the slow turning of a spoon. The sun edges over the horizon, bleeding a dull orange into the grey sky. It should be beautiful, but inside the crippled Lancaster, dawn feels like exposure. Every mile they fly brings the light closer, and with it the realization of how much is broken. The cockpit windows are fogged with smoke residue. Frost gathers along the glass, etched in strange patterns by the night's cold. Briggs wipes a circle clear with his glove, peers out, and sees nothing but the endless shimmer of the channel. Fuel's down to 30 minutes. Clark calls out. His voice cracks from exhaustion, and hydraulics are gone. We'll lose the undercarriage if we even try to land. Briggs doesn't answer. He's studying the control column, testing what still moves. Each adjustment gives him half a second of hope, then disappointment. The left aileron jerks uselessly, flapping in the wind. Radio's dead. Hayes mutters, pulling off his headset. We can't even send Mayday. Then we don't crash. Briggs says quietly. Not yet. For a moment no one speaks. The sound of the engines fills the void. Uneven, coughing, but alive. Briggs glances at the compass again, still spinning. Navigation by instruments is impossible. He turns his eyes to the waves below, trying to sense direction the way old sailors once did. He knows the odds. Every damaged plane that crossed the channel that night is already at the bottom. The sea keeps its secrets well. The smell of oil thickens. The second engine begins to stutter. Clark curses, pounding the panel. Briggs' hands are steady, deliberate. He trims what's left of the rudder control, coaxing balance through instinct alone. Come on, girl, he murmurs to the aircraft as if the machine can hear him. Just a little further. He feels the vibration through the yoke, a deep mechanical shiver that tells him something is failing inside the wing. The control feedback is gone, the stick moves freely, lifeless. Hayes notices it too. We've lost control link completely. Briggs stares ahead, the horizon tilts again. Then we find another way to fly her. His tone is quiet, almost reflective. There's no room for panic now. Only problem, solving, the kind that comes from deep instinct and stubborn faith. He remembers his father's voice, years before the war, in a dusty workshop behind their house. If you can't fix it, understand it. Everything can be made to work again if you know how it wants to move. Briggs looks down. The spoon still lies near his boot. He picks it up, turns it in his fingers. Cold metal, slightly bent. Around him, the bomber creaks under strain. Something clicks in his mind. An impossible idea. He glances at the co-pilot's lever, the one still linked to the secondary control system. If he could reroute force manually, if he could transfer motion using something rigid enough to mimic the feedback of the snapped cable. He doesn't finish the thought, not yet. It's too wild to speak aloud. Clark, he says instead, voice low, get me some duct tape and any spare wire we've got. Clark blinks, for what? Just do it. There's something in Briggs' eyes that stops argument. Clark moves fast, rummaging through the emergency kit, tearing open boxes. He finds the grey tape, a few loose wires, and a broken metal clamp. He passes them forward. Briggs studies the spoon again, then the lever, then the gap where the control linkage once ran. Hayes realizes what he's attempting. You can't be serious, that'll never hold. Briggs doesn't answer. His silence says everything. He leans forward, sets the spoon against the lever base, and begins to tape it in place. His movements are slow, careful, every motion deliberate. The bomber shakes violently, forcing him to brace with one hand while working with the other. The sound of tearing tape fills the cabin, sticky and rough against metal. Sir, that's madness, Clark mutters. Briggs gives a faint smile. Madness is what's keeping us alive. Outside, the wind screams against the fuselage. Inside, only the creak of strained metal and the rasp of breathing remain. He wraps the last strip of tape, tight and clean. The spoon now bridges the broken linkage, a crude makeshift connector between the two levers. It's absurd, but it might just give them partial control. Briggs tests it carefully. The lever moves, not much, but it moves. He feels a faint resistance, a whisper of control coming back through his hands. Hayes stares, astonished. You actually did it. Not yet. Briggs says, let's see if she listens. He nudges the lever gently. Outside, the left wing twitches, barely visible but real. The bomber steadies by a fraction. The artificial calm in the cockpit breaks into stunned silence. For the first time since the raid began, hope flickers between them. Clark lets out a shaky laugh. I'll be damned. Briggs exhales, eyes locked on the horizon. He doesn't smile. He can't afford to. Don't celebrate yet. We've only bought time. The engines groan again, straining under the rising sun. The sea glints below like shards of glass. The bomber lurches forward, fighting gravity, fighting fate. Briggs keeps one hand on the lever, one on the tape-wrapped column. Every movement is measured. Every second is precious. He doesn't know if this will hold. He only knows he's not done fighting. Set course west. He says softly, let's bring her home. The dawn widens, golden and cold. Behind them, the smoke of Hamburg fades into the distance. Ahead, across the channel, lies a strip of home they may never reach, but will die trying to see. And in the trembling light of morning, a pilot with nothing left to lose has just turned a spoon into a lifeline. The morning sky is a pale wash of silver. Below, the channel lies calm, indifferent to the dying aircraft limping above it. The engines sputter like old lungs, their rhythm uneven, desperate. Inside the cockpit, every vibration feels personal, as if the bomber itself is begging to stay alive just a little longer. Howard Briggs doesn't speak, he listens. To the trembling of the yoke, the groaning of stressed metal, the faint ticking behind the instrument panel, all the sounds of a machine slowly unraveling. He knows them by heart now. Every noise tells him a truth. The left wing is weakening, the tape on the spoon joint is loosening, and time is running out. Pressure's dropping fast. Clark says from behind, his voice hoarse. We've got a leak somewhere near the main feed. Hayes checks the fuel gauges and swears under his breath. We're losing fuel faster than we can burn it. Briggs nods once, calm, always calm. We stretch what we've got. Engine 2 to half throttle. The engineer hesitates. Half will lose altitude. Briggs keeps his eyes ahead. We already are. The bomber dips slightly, nose dropping toward the shimmering water below. The crew feels the shift like a slow, sinking heartbeat. The airframe moans, the channel rises in the windows. Trim her, Hayes calls out, gripping the auxiliary control. The spoon tape joint flexes. A faint metallic creak answers back like a warning. Briggs steadies it with both hands. Easy, he murmurs, almost whispering to the aircraft itself. Hold on, the control sticks again, resisting him. Sweat runs down his temples. He pushes gently, coaxing, not forcing. For a moment the bomber obeys. They level out. A breath of relief moves through the cabin. It doesn't last. The intercom bursts to life with a burst of static. A distorted voice crackles through the tail gunner, Miller. Sir Smoke in the rear compartment. Looks like a short. I can't. His words vanish in a hiss of static. Briggs glances at the flickering indicators. The electrical system's failing again. He can almost feel the wires beneath his feet heating up. Kill non-essentials. He orders. Lights, heaters, everything but comms. Clark flips switches in rapid succession. The cockpit dims until it's lit only by the weak grey of dawn filtering through the glass. Hayes leans close, voice low. We can't keep this up, Howard. She's coming apart. Briggs' answer is simple. Then we come apart after we cross the coast. He doesn't look at him when he says it. His eyes are fixed forward, locked on the empty distance. In his mind, he can almost see England, those white cliffs, ghost-like in the mist. He clings to that image. It's all that's left to believe in. Minutes drag on. The cabin air grows heavy, hot from friction and leaking fumes. Oxygen masks hang limp, useless. The system's dead. Every breath tastes of oil and fear. Miller calls again from the back. Sir, I've got smoke thick as hell back here. Briggs presses the intercom button. Do what you can, Sergeant. We're holding altitude. I'm trying, sir, but... The rest is swallowed by static. Briggs swallows hard. He can't afford to think about it. One thing at a time. Keep the plane in the air. Clark wipes his face with a fuel-stained sleeve. If we lose another engine, we're done. Briggs doesn't respond. He knows it's true. He glances at the spoon lever again, the absurd lifeline keeping them aloft. The tape flutters slightly at the edges, trembling with every vibration. He wants to reinforce it, but there's no way to let go of the controls now. One wrong move, and they'll spin out of the sky. Hayes leans back, staring at the control fix. It's holding, he mutters, almost in disbelief. By all logic, that shouldn't work. Briggs answers quietly. Logic doesn't fly planes. People do. Outside, the clouds gather again, low and heavy, wrapping them in a soft grey shroud. The bomber disappears into mist, its outline lost. Inside the cockpit, visibility drops to almost nothing. Hayes peers into the fog. We're blind. Good. Briggs replies, means they can't see us either. No one mentions who they are, the fighters, the flak, the endless searchlights of the enemy coast. That nightmare is behind them now, but its echo lingers in every heartbeat. The altimeter trembles. The plane's sinking again, slowly, uncontrollably. Briggs feels it in the pit of his stomach, that faint dropping sensation, the air thinning around him. Ease the throttle, he says, we'll ride the descent. The bomber groans, the frame bending under invisible weight. Clark bites his lip, staring at the gauges. At this rate, we'll hit the channel before we hit the coast. Then we won't hit it. Briggs replies, voice low but certain. Not while I'm breathing. The crew exchange glances, exhausted, pale. They've stopped thinking of survival in hours. It's minutes now, maybe seconds. Hayes stares at the control column, at Briggs' hands steady, unmoving. You think she'll make it? Briggs doesn't answer right away. His eyes drift to the small window on his left, where a sliver of sunlight breaks through the fog. The light reflects faintly off the tape and metal of the spoon. He breathes in, deep and deliberate. She'll make it as long as we do. The words hang in the air, part promise, part prayer. And as the bomber drifts lower, the mist closing in like a shroud, the men inside can feel the weight of the impossible pressing down on them. Every breath, every sound, every shiver of the aircraft reminds them that they are one mistake away from vanishing into the sea. The spoon creaks again, a sound so small, yet louder than the engines in that moment. Briggs looks at it, eyes unblinking, knowing that everything, their mission, their survival, their story now hangs on that single strip of metal and tape. The pressure builds, the channel waits, and somewhere beyond the fog, the coast of home still hides in the distance. The bomber limps through the morning haze like a wounded bird. The world outside is nothing but fog and muted light, endless and silent. Inside, every second feels stretched thin, fragile as glass. Clark's hands are shaking. He wipes oil from his face and checks the engine readings again. Temperatures spiking on number 2. He mutters, she's running too hot. Hayes doesn't even look up. We can't cut it. That's the only one still giving lift. Briggs says nothing. His eyes are fixed ahead, unblinking. He can feel the vibration through the yoke, the strange, uneven rhythm that tells him the propeller is unbalanced. If it tears loose, it will rip through the fuselage like a blade. But fear doesn't serve him now. Calm is the only currency that matters. He draws a slow breath. We'll nurse her. He says quietly, ease the throttle down 1 point. Clark nods. The change is barely visible on the dials, but it's enough. The vibration softens just slightly. The engine coughs once, then settles into a nervous hum. For a moment, the silence feels heavier than noise. Sir, Miller's voice comes faintly over the intercom again, weak and broken. Fire's out in the rear compartment, but the fuselage, it's cracked along the seam. I can see daylight. Briggs closes his eyes for half a second. Hold your position, Sergeant. We're nearly there. He knows it's a lie. They're not nearly anywhere. They're drifting blind across the channel with no bearings, no radio, and a ship held together by tape, sweat, and stubbornness. Hayes pulls off his flight glove, revealing a trembling hand. He rubs at his wrist, stiff from the cold. Howard, he says softly, if we go down, you think they'll find us. Briggs keeps his eyes forward, not us, maybe the wreckage. The truth sits heavy in the air. No one speaks after that. Minutes pass. The bomber drifts lower, skimming the clouds. The grey breaks apart for a heartbeat, revealing the ocean below. Black and endless. Altitude's dropping again, Clark warns. Briggs tightens his grip on the spoon-jointed lever. The tape flutters slightly, worn by wind and heat. It won't last much longer. He feels it in his bones. Trim it, he says. Keep her steady. Hayes tries the auxiliary lever, but it sticks. The left wing dips hard. The plane rolls. The horizon tilts. Pull it back. Briggs shouts, both hands straining against the yoke. The spoon flexes, the tape stretching. For a terrifying second, nothing happens. Then, slowly, painfully, the aircraft levels again. Everyone exhales at once. Hayes slumps back in his seat, panting. She's not gonna hold. She will. Briggs says she has to. He doesn't sound convinced, but conviction isn't required. Only persistence. The cockpit grows darker again as clouds swallow the sun. Moisture beads along the glass, tiny rivers racing downward. The air smells of burnt oil and ozone. Pressure's still dropping. Clark says quietly, "At this rate, we'll lose hydraulics on the landing gear too." Briggs answers without hesitation. "Then we'll land without them." He says it like a man ordering coffee, flat, sure, unshaken. Hayes stares at him, disbelief flickering behind his eyes. "Howard, you try to land her like this." Briggs nods once. "You got a better idea? No one does." The bomber lurches again, a deep metallic groan running through the frame. A loose panel rattles somewhere in the fuselage, tapping like a slow heartbeat. Clark presses his headset tighter, listening for Miller's voice. But the line is dead. Briggs glances at the altimeter, 3,000 feet, dropping. He can't see the coastline yet. Just the clouds and the faint gleam of water below. Hayes rubs his eyes. If the wind's holding, we should be crossing the channel soon. Briggs glances through the cockpit glass, searching. Nothing, only mist, and then, out of nowhere, a faint shadow ahead. A darker shape against the fog. He leans forward. Land. He whispers, "That's land." Hayes blinks, follows his gaze, and sees it too. A faint smudge of grey, green breaking through the clouds. Hope hits the cabin like oxygen. Clark exhales a laugh that's half sob. "That's the coast. God, that's the bloody coast." Briggs doesn't smile. He just tightens his grip on the lever, eyes narrowing. We're not home yet. The plane begins to shake violently again. The tape on the spoon tears slightly, one edge curling loose. Briggs feels the change immediately. The control slackens in his hand. He reacts instantly, pressing his palm hard against the joint, forcing it down, holding the lever steady through sheer strength. The bomber bucks like a horse in pain. Hayes grips the console to stay upright. "Howard, it's coming apart. Then hold it together." Briggs shouts back, voice raw for the first time, the engines scream. The fog thickens. The coastline flickers in and out of view like a mirage. Every sound is amplified. The roar of the wind, the rattle of loose bolts, the hiss of leaking oil. It's a symphony of breaking things, and Briggs is conducting it with his bare hands. The spoon creaks, the tape straining. He can feel it slipping, and yet, through all of it, the bomber holds its line, wobbling, shuddering, screaming but holding. Clark watches him, eyes wide. "I don't know how you're doing this." Briggs' answer comes through clenched teeth. "Because if I stop, we die." The coastline grows sharper now, white cliffs blurred by mist. The first sight of home, Hayes' voice cracks. "There, Dover, I can see it." Briggs doesn't answer. His arms are trembling, muscles locking from the strain. He can't let go, not for a second. The spoon is half detached now, only the core of the tape keeping it alive. The crew begins to cry quietly, relief, fear, exhaustion, all mixing together. Briggs stares ahead, unblinking. The cliffs draw closer, sunlight breaking through the clouds in fractured beams. For the first time in hours, he lets out a slow, shaking breath. "We're not falling." He murmurs, "Not today." The plane shudders one last time, fighting gravity and exhaustion. Briggs forces the lever forward, leveling out as the coast rises beneath them. Behind them, The channel glitters under the morning sun, silent, endless, and waiting for what could have been their grave. And in that fragile balance between destruction and survival, a single truth remains. The only thing keeping them aloft is will. The spoon holds, the tape strains, and somewhere deep inside that cockpit, the line between genius and madness blurs beyond recognition. By the time the first streaks of sunlight touch the cockpit, the world has turned into a trembling blur of motion and noise. The bomber rides the air in a state of collapse, too heavy to climb, too slow to glide, held together by nothing more than instinct and tape. Briggs' eyes sting from smoke and sleeplessness. His voice has gone hoarse, stripped to a whisper. Hold her steady. He mutters to himself, though no one could hear it over the wind. The spoon joint groans again. It's not meant to bear force. It bends under the pressure, thin metal creaking with every vibration. Each time Briggs moves the lever, he can feel the resistance weaken. It's like flying with a heartbeat that could stop at any second. Behind him, Clark works in silence, hands black with grease. He's lost count of how many times he's checked the gauges, knowing none of them mean much anymore. Numbers lie when machines are dying. Hayes leans forward, scanning the clouds. We're over the coast, he says, almost afraid to believe it. That has to be Kent. Look. Through a break in the fog, rolling green fields stretch below like a watercolour painting. It's home, but far too far to glide to if the engines die. Briggs exhales slowly, relief mixing with dread. We've crossed the channel, but the hard part isn't over. The spoon shifts again under his palm, a sharp metallic ping echoing through the cabin. A crack races along the duct tape, like a fault line spreading through the earth. Howard, what was that? Hayes asks, eyes wide. Nothing. Briggs says quietly, though he knows it's everything. He studies the joint. The spoon's edge has begun to warp, bending just enough to misalign the movement. His control is slipping away tiny degrees at a time. He thinks fast. There's no manual for this, no protocol, no training for flying with kitchenware and adhesive. What's left is creativity, raw, instinctive, born of desperation. He remembers the old lectures from flight school. Control is just a conversation with the air. Treat it like an argument, firm but never loud. He stares at the spoon, the tape, the shivering lever, and something begins to form. A pattern, a path, a way to rebuild feedback using the parts around him. He nods once to himself. Clark, hand me that maintenance wire bundle under the nav panel. Clark frowns. You mean the comm spares? Those are now. The tone leaves no room for debate. Clark digs through the clutter, pulls out a coil of stripped copper wire, hands it forward. Briggs lays it across his lap, eyes flicking between the controls. The spoon gives him a fraction of control on one side. If he could link the other lever manually, feed motion through tension instead of mechanics, he could stabilize both wings at once. Hayes realizes what he's doing. Howard, you can't run live wire near that panel, it's scorched. You'll fry yourself. Then we'll fly fast enough it doesn't matter. Briggs moves like a surgeon now, deliberate and quiet. He threads the wire around the secondary lever, twisting it into a rough loop, pulling it tight. He runs the other end through the base of the spoon handle, winding it twice. It's a crude design, but it does one thing perfectly: it transfers pressure. He tests it gently. The wire tightens, pulling the lever just enough to echo the spoon's movement. A small sound of metal tension hums through the cockpit, like the low note of a violin. It's working. Barely, but it's working. Hayes watches, disbelief in his voice. You're making a control linkage out of wire and a spoon. Briggs doesn't look up. I'm making a conversation out of chaos. He secures the last turn of wire with a twist, then tapes it in place. Each motion sure and silent. The bomber trembles again as turbulence hits. The spoon flexes, the wire strains, and the aircraft holds steady. A fragile miracle. Clark laughs softly under his breath, half delirious. If we live through this, I'm never mocking your tea habits again. Briggs allows himself the smallest grin. Remind me when we land. Outside, the morning clouds are thinning. Patches of sunlight scatter across the sea and fields below. and for the first time in hours, the cockpit glows in natural light. The faces of the crew look human again, tired, hollow-eyed, but alive. The spoon glints where the light catches it, taped and wired, ridiculous and perfect. Briggs adjusts the lever. The response is smoother now, not full control, but predictable. The plane levels out. The engines hum evenly for the first time since the raid. Hayes shakes his head in awe. You've done it, haven't you? You've actually stabilized her. Briggs exhales through his nose, still focused, for now. Let's not ask for more than that. He checks the altimeter 2,000 feet. Enough to search for a landing field, enough maybe to survive. He glances down at his creation, this absurd symphony of spoon, tape and copper wire, and feels something he hasn't felt since the night began. Pride, not for glory, not for skill, but for defiance itself. Because this, he realizes, is what survival looks like. Not heroics, not miracles, but refusing to quit when logic says it's over. The radio remains silent, the air thick with vibration and wind. But in that cockpit, invention hums like a heartbeat. The spark of genius isn't loud, it never is. It's quiet, stubborn, and born from the edge of despair. And as the bomber glides over the awakening coast of England, the man at the controls is no longer just a pilot. He's an engineer of survival, sculpting life out of ruin. The bomber drifts above the English coast, trembling but alive. Below, the countryside rolls in quiet greens and browns, a world far removed from the firestorm they left behind. To the crew, it feels unreal, like flying through a memory rather than home. Inside the cockpit, the air hums with tension. The spoon and wire fix holds, but it's fragile, a heartbeat away from failure. Every gust of wind tests it. Every vibration threatens to undo it. Yet Briggs keeps his hand steady, feeling the faint tug of control through the wire, his creation breathing with the machine. Altitude's holding. Clark murmurs, watching the dials, 1,000 feet and stable. Hayes lets out a breath that sounds like a prayer. I'll take stable. Briggs doesn't respond. He's listening again, the subtle whine of the engines, the new rhythm of the control feedback, the tone of the air moving over the fuselage. All of it tells him a story, one of strain, but also of balance. His mind runs back to the night raid, to the chaos over Hamburg, the endless searchlights, the orange clouds of flak, the feeling of being hunted through the sky. It seems distant now, but its echoes still live in every rattle of the plane. He looks at the spoon, taped and bent out of shape, glinting in the soft light. It's ridiculous and brilliant all at once. The kind of thing no one would ever believe unless they'd seen it themselves. Hayes breaks the silence. You ever think you'd fly a Lancaster with cutlery? Briggs smiles faintly. I'll take whatever listens to me. A soft creak runs through the fuselage. The plane dips slightly, right wing low. Briggs corrects with a gentle motion of the lever, and to everyone's astonishment, the bomber obeys, smooth and direct. Good girl, he whispers. For the first time since midnight, he allows himself to breathe fully. The control feels alive now, delicate but responsive. It's not precision, it's partnership. A wounded bird flying on instinct. Clark glances at him, eyes rimmed red. How long you think that'll hold? Briggs doesn't answer right away. He studies the tape edges peeling slightly from the spoon, the wire stretched tight. Long enough to matter. The words hang heavy, but they're true. Long enough to matter, that's all any of them have left. The cabin grows quieter. Outside, the wind shifts direction. A thin line of sunlight cuts through the clouds, touching the instrument panel with gold. For a moment, it looks almost peaceful. Then, faintly, from somewhere deep in the structure, comes a new sound, a low metallic ping. Briggs freezes. He knows that sound. Something has given way. Did you hear that? Hayes whispers. Briggs nods slowly, wires slipping. He flexes the lever slightly, the spoon shifts, and the plane jerks. The feedback's off by a fraction. That's all it takes for panic to creep back in. Come on, he mutters, his voice low, intimate, like speaking to a wounded friend. Don't do this now. He reaches for the toolkit at his feet, but the bomber shudders violently before he can grab it. The right wing dips again. Hayes grabs the side panel for balance. Howard, I've got it. Briggs growls, forcing the lever back. The spoon bends farther. tape stretching to the edge of tearing. For a moment it holds. The vibration steadies, the wire tightens, biting into the spoon handle like a clenched fist. Then silence again, the creak of the airframe, the rhythmic gasp of the engines, nothing else. Clark wipes sweat from his brow. Bloody hell, Howard, you're going to kill yourself doing that. Briggs exhales, long and even. Better me than her. The words are strange, almost reverent. He looks around the cockpit, at the bruised metal and cracked glass, and realizes what he's really fighting for. Not just his crew, not just the mission, but the machine itself, this battered miracle that's carried them through hell and back. Hayes lowers his voice. What happens if we lose the fix? Briggs doesn't hesitate. Then we glide until we can't. There's a calm in his tone that steadies everyone else. They know what it means. There's no panic, no despair, just acceptance of what must be done. Outside, the fields grow larger, clearer. They're close enough now to see hedgerows, small farms, and winding roads. Home so close it feels cruel. Clark leans toward the window. That's England all right. I can smell it. Hayes chuckles softly, shaking his head. Oil and fear, that's what I smell. Even Briggs allows himself a thin smile. Don't breathe too deep then. The wire hums again, steady this time, singing quietly with the rhythm of flight. He can feel it working, each tiny motion feeding through his makeshift link, every movement alive with tension and control. It's more than engineering, it's faith made tangible. He thinks of the men who'll never make it home, their aircraft lost in the Channel or the fields of France. He wonders if any of them ever tried something as foolish as this. Maybe not. Maybe this kind of madness only comes when you refuse to let the sky win. Minutes pass like hours, the engines cough, sputter, but hold. The land grows clearer, the sea fading behind them. Then through the haze a flicker of sunlight reflects off glass ahead. Hayes squints. Howard, that's a control tower, that's Manston. Briggs doesn't speak. He just stares. The airfield looks impossibly small, framed by fields and hedgerows. But it's real. Clark leans forward. Can we make it? Briggs adjusts the lever. The bomber tilts slightly, obedient. We'll find out. The spoon creaks, the wire sings, and the bomber begins its slow, careful turn toward the landing field. Every move feels like walking a tightrope made of glass. As the airfield grows closer, the crew can see smoke trailing faintly from the wing, shimmering in the sunlight. It looks almost beautiful. Hayes watches it and whispers, "You think anyone will believe this?" Briggs doesn't answer. His eyes are locked on the runway ahead. He knows that history never remembers the small details, the tape, the spoon, the sound of wire humming in rhythm with a man's heartbeat. But those are the moments that save lives. And as the bomber lines up for its approach, every second is a conversation between man and machine, between logic and faith, between destruction and genius. The spoon glints one last time in the light, a symbol of impossible will. The air hums with silence. The field draws near, and Howard Briggs, the pilot who refused to fall, tightens his grip on a piece of bent silver, ready to make the impossible flight complete. The airfield at Manston lies ahead, a thin, grey strip cut into the green of the English countryside. From this distance it looks peaceful, almost unreal. But inside the bomber, peace is the farthest thing from truth. The engines roar unevenly, each one on the edge of failure. The smell of fuel fills the cabin. The spoon and wire contraption vibrates under Briggs's hand, each movement whispering danger. The duct tape is frayed now, edges lifting like peeling skin. Hayes stares through the cracked windshield. There's the runway, but she's too fast. Briggs nods once. His voice is dry, steady. Will bleed speed on descent. Flaps first. Clark shakes his head. Flaps won't respond. Hydraulics are shot. Briggs breathes out through his nose, then will improvise again. He eases the throttle, the bomber beginning its slow descent. The engines groan, coughing black smoke into the morning sky. Below, the coastline drifts past chalk cliffs, green fields, roads dotted with trucks heading to nowhere in particular. Civilians might look up and see a hero returning home, but inside the cockpit, the men know better. They're not returning, they're surviving by the second. Gear down. Briggs orders. Clark works the lever. Nothing happens. He slams it again. Still nothing. Hydraulics are gone. He says, voice tight. Undercarriage won't drop. Briggs glances out the window. The ground is closer now, detail sharpening. Then we land without it. Hayes turns, disbelief on his face. A belly landing in this state. Briggs doesn't look away from the horizon. It's the only kind of landing we've got. The crew exchange a look, silent, understanding. Clark straps himself in, tightening the harness until it bites into his shoulders. Hayes grips the side panel, white, knuckled. Miller's voice crackles weakly through the intercom. "What's the plan, sir?" Briggs presses the button. "Plan's the same as always, Sergeant. Don't die." Static fills the line. A few seconds later, Miller's faint laugh echoes back. "Copy that." Briggs levels the bomber out, the nose dipping toward the field. Wind howls through the cockpit seams, the wire groans, the spoon flexes, its metal glint dulled by grime. Every motion feels heavier now, as if gravity itself wants to finish what the flak started. "Watch your altitude," Clark shouts. 800. Hayes calls, scanning the altimeter. "Too high for this angle," Clark mutters. Briggs adjusts the lever, slow, deliberate. The plane responds sluggishly. The spoon creaks, tape stretching under tension. For a moment the left wing drops again, but Briggs catches it, steadying with sheer muscle. "Come on." He whispers, "Hold together. Just a little longer." The earth rises fast now, hedgerows, fences, the dark streak of tarmac ahead.